Welcome back, everybody, to, I believe this is episode 5. I really hope I can freaking count. It is somewhat off season. So now's the time when you know what we all do. We test. The riders are testing. The mechanics, well, they're the ones that are making the testing happen for the riders. But hey, even in the YouTube world, in the metaverse, we are freaking testing. My mind is still kind of in fog mode from the Iron Man because that whole thing happened, and I'm kind of addicted to that stuff now. So I'm signing up for a couple more, but that is more about me, less about the show. So I'm digressing. I've got a couple badass guests. You know, my co-host, Coach Robb. How the heck are you doing?
We are doing good, man. Good afternoon. Good to have you. Just want to give everybody a fair warning. I've got an air show rehearsing about 3 miles away. So we've got the Blue Angels going by and a couple F-18s, some F-35s, all kinds of stuff going on. So I apologize. We've done one show where I had roofers, and now I've got an airplane show a couple miles away. So we give it all to you here at Complete Racing Solutions. What can I say?
And then I've got AJ with me as well. My transitions are all effed up because I was trying to have AJ be the main guy there, but somehow it's making me big. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted AJ. So
testing. We're testing, bro. We're testing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But because I've got a clickbait title, right, saying that Degan is going to Ducati, it's possible. Right? If I was Ducati, this is pure speculation, guys. That's what this show is. So everyone in the chat, make sure that you let us know what your speculation is. It would be perfect for those guys to do a cash grab with Ducati. We know Ducati's got the money. And once they finally release a motocross bike, it's probably going to be one of the more expensive dirt bikes. But we've got some new players on the scene with Beta. You got Benny Bloss and Colt Nichols, which is a strong team. That is a strong, I want to call it a satellite team, because if you've ever been to any of the off-road races, Beta has a good presence, but they're usually going out of like some sprinter vans. They're not like this big extravagant, let's spend millions and millions of dollars even with the truck and whatnot. And then you've got Triumph, where they're racing 2024 in MX2, I believe, overseas. And they've got one of the riders, Evan Ferry, that they're trying to get up and running into this new factory team once they get it over here. But then there's lots of speculation that Ducati is going to have a 450 first rather than a 250, because we all know that they're going to the Italian series with the 9-time MXGP champion Caroli as the manager. So, Coach, I know we were talking in the background about how crazy it would be if Degan was to. There's the planes. Perfect segue to rocket ship it with the money to get on that team, and it might honestly be not a bad deal too for once he does go 450 in 2025.
Well, that's the big key, is if you step back and you look at where we're at right now and you look at the next 3 years, right, it's pretty safe to assume that Degan's pretty proud of this first year on the 250s. If we look at the idea that he comes back, wins a championship next year in the 250 class, comes back, because most contracts are you win the championship, salary doubles. So he'll be making some pretty good money there in the 250 class. Then it's time for him to move up to the 450 class. And if you kind of play the landscape a little bit, you've got the Hunter, you've got the Lawrence brothers, you've got Hunter and Jed at Honda. I don't see Lucas letting that relationship with Honda go away. We don't know what the second player at Cowie will be. We do know that the second year of Jason Anderson's contract will be up there. I don't know what Sexton's contract is, but I think I heard it's a 3, maybe even a 4-year deal. So there's no opening there at KTM. And we know Degan's, not going to go to a team and be a second fiddle to anybody. So if you look at the idea, Triumph has purchased the MX compound. That's Matt Walker's old place. And that's where Bobby Hewitt and Evan Ferry is shaking down the Triumph. You've got Mosiman that's going over there. So you've got 2 years with a couple 250 riders. Well, now that platform is going to be ready for a 450 rider. We look at Ducati. Obviously, they've made a tremendous statement that they're not here to play games. I mean, it'd be one thing. We've even talked about it off the record, Johnny. You know, when you see Jeremy McGrath being a brand ambassador for Kawasaki, it just simply doesn't make sense. It should either be Yamaha or Honda. That's what we all know it as. It's not like Caroli is a brand ambassador. He is literally the team manager for the current MXGP team. And Ducati came in and just said, thank you very much, and poached him. I think that's as much of a dick swinging contest as much as it is anything else. Like, and Jace with Gypsy Tales said it best when he was talking with, excuse me, with McGrath, the idea that Ducati has stepped in and really tried to shake the world for KTM and the MotoGP side of things. If you look at just a couple of years ago, Honda and Yamaha were dominating MotoGP, and now it's KTM, Ducati, and Aprilia. So you look at Ducati wanting to make a statement in the motocross world. What more of a powerful statement could you say than when you get your 450 US rider in place? And you know, those guys, everybody's playing the long game. Look at JGR. How many years did it take before they got James Stewart? Right? You come in, you shake the bugs out.
Dude, but that like ruined his career basically when he got on that thing. That Yamaha didn't work for shit.
Yeah, but think about what that did for JGR's program. It brought instant credibility. Whether we liked it, he liked it, didn't like it. Isn't it ironic that JGR's model was, if you ride for our team, you will be living here, and it never materialized. And now you've got the Star Farm and you've got the Baker compound, and that's pretty much the same idea, right? So it's interesting. What goes around comes around. What's old is new. And that's where I think if you look at where the money is at, if you look at the dick swinging contest between KTM and Ducati, and then you've got Degan, who is at the right place at the right time, I still am not 100% convinced that, and maybe I'm wrong, because McGrath couldn't, McGrath couldn't make his team work. Ricky couldn't make his own team work. But wouldn't be a bit surprised if Degan came out and tried to wrap a team around himself. He's got the monster money. Even if it was a supported program by maybe Star, you know, the same way that we see some of these teams provide bikes behind the scenes. If he really likes that Yamaha platform, when we go to a 450 platform, and if he likes it, what would be, because we know that Brian Degan was an investor early on in the Star Yamaha program. So fast forward 3 years, if that Yamaha is still the platform to be on, and obviously Brian has the relationships, you could see Degan doing his own team. Maybe it's sponsored by YouTube or, you know, Google or something like that. I don't think that's something else that I think is, Johnny, I think it was yourself. You said that Google bought Formula One. Is that correct?
There's some speculation out there that Apple is going to spend like $2 billion on here. I'll see if I can pull it up here. But
but stop and think about why they would invest in that kind of money.
Well, first I want to ask you, Coach, and then have AJ kind of rebuttal you as to why potentially Degan might move to something like Ducati. But here, let's see if I can. So this was the $2 billion Apple is preparing to offer Formula One, a massive deal that would lead Apple to having 100% exclusive rights of the F1 races, which that is pretty insane.
Well, but think about what Degan has got on YouTube. I don't want to get in front of AJ. I just want to kind of lay that seed. If we talk so much about the idea that Degan has built a platform on YouTube, and we see Apple going and buying Formula One, the rights to broadcast it, and then you have Degan, that's the next big thing in the 450 class. I could see Degan having a team wrapped around them with their own broadcast network and everything else. I don't think it's far-fetched whatsoever. Because, I mean, you're coming in saying we've already got 1.3 million followers as just me, myself, and I, as the Degan family. Then add Haley's following and even add Brian's own following. That's a pretty powerful punch to bring to a platform if you want eyeballs on it and for a few sponsorship dollars.
AJ, why do you think it's not possible that Degan wouldn't stay with Star and eventually go where the money goes with something like Ducati?
Well, First of all, I wouldn't count it out. I mean, anything's possible when Degan is at the lead of this attention economy. Even if he doesn't win on the track, he's gonna win off the track, no matter what. And there's definitely he has a lot more sway than everyone else, whether people like it or not. Impressions on Instagram or impressions on YouTube, that's quantifiable data, and he is winning off the track. So he can definitely leverage that however he wants, depending on what his personal goals for the future are. I remember there was a lot of speculation leading into him getting there's an airplane again.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's Degan beating everyone on the internet, just flying over their heads.
Well, speaking of airplane, AJ, here, I'm just gonna play with the program just a little bit here, and we'll have you. Oh, whoa! What did it do? Jesus, Mary and Joseph? Why is this so hard to have all of us?
We're testing, guys. We're testing.
I was gonna say, just turn it out 2 clicks, Johnny. Just soften it up 2 clicks, man.
Whoa! Yard sale.
Oh, dude, how many people are gonna be hurt? There he goes. This is a whoop, and then just luckily he jumped off the bike.
He had the wherewithal to get out of the whoops. That was smart. Crashing.
Oh, but did you see? It's his left foot fell off. That's what caused the whole thing.
Yeah, he lost his balance. Yep.
Then missed a whoop. But is he going to finish the season? Okay, here.
Watching this crash, like I was at Charlotte SMX, and Degan, I don't know if he's doing like an intense yoga program. He's real flexible. The kid doesn't break, man. Like I watched him in person take that slam in SMX practice when he went over the bars. I was watching him that lap, and I saw that whole thing happen. Like my brain went in slow motion when he crashed. And the kid can take a hit, and not many people, some people, like, unfortunately, like Faulkner. I love Austin Riley, them, they're super cool people, but the kid, when he hits the ground, like, stuff breaks. When Degan hits the ground, like, his crash IQ is just really high. And I think him, if you really look at the big separation between, someone like Eli Tomac or someone like, I don't know, Justin Barcia, even, like, one of them has gotten hurt way more than the other, if you subtract the recent Achilles thing in this past year. And that really, has a lot to do with the trajectory of your career. So I don't know if I was to push back against the Degan going to Ducati, I would just say that he has a lot of really fast guys around him. And, what is it, like 7 or 8 250 guys are on Star Yamaha? Is that the right number? 7 or 8?
That sounds about right. Yeah, 7 or 8.
Okay, so there's 7. So if half of them go west, half of them go east, your race every day, you're practicing against like 1/5 of your actual gate. You're the fastest guy. You get in everyone's head because they can't beat you at the practice track. You do that every day. I think if Ducati happens, it's not going to be this like solo dolo deal. He's going to have to still have a way to test and be practicing with other riders. I don't see him like going solo by any sense of the imagination, like not at all. But
yeah,
I don't know. And also, just really fast, I'm going to wrap this up. The bike has to be right. The bike, I don't think he's just going to do something for money. He's the kind of person that's going to go with the team that he knows he can win on, which is why they signed at Star Yamaha in the first place. So if the bike has to prove itself, I think it would be a little impulsive to be the first guy to ride that bike, unless it's like proven. I don't know. That's a tough.
Unless you've got like a massive amounts of money behind to where that this is going to be the biggest program, almost like what Dungey did with KTM, where they just totally built that all around, and then they just wanted to get into the U.S. market, and then KTM eventually sort of had made this pyramid here for the longest time where they were the best manufacturer. They were the best bikes. Now they got gas and KTM, and a lot of people in the chat are saying that the chassis is now shit and nobody wants it anymore. But it's funny if you look back at the whole, what do I want to say, the 2000 and even the 90s, when you got like Jeremy McGrath practicing by himself, and then Carmichael was always practicing by himself. Reedy was practicing by himself. But there's something to be said as far as you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if your team literally has like the top 5 position riders, that is just going to elevate you to where, you know, if you're beating them, just like what you were saying, AJ, it's a totally different way of training and working, which makes Degan so fast. Personally, I think if Degan was on his own program, even for last year, and he wasn't around guys like Levi Kitchen and Jordan Smith, that he probably wouldn't, and riding with Tomac all the time, he probably wouldn't have done what he did last year. His progression grew so much because he saw and he learned from other people's experience. Coach, I know you're like, I just said it, you are the coach. How do you feel about the changing of the tide when it comes to guys riding with each other? And you've got this Club MX and Reynolds Place and Millsaps and, you know, what we just, the compound.
Well, you have about 4 different things that you can integrate there together. First and foremost, I do agree with AJ. He's not going to go to a new platform, but you have to remember, we're talking 3 years out before Ducati has a 450 program. If you take the example you gave, Johnny, about Roger,
people are saying he's going to Suzuki in the chat.
If you think back when Ryan and RD, Roger DeCoster, went to KTM, everybody said it was a career death move, right? And then everybody got hushed quite quickly because Roger got in there. KTM gave him unlimited resources, unlimited budgets, and look at how far KTM got in 3 years. Well, if we go back to the example of MotoGP and you look at how far Ducati has gotten into MotoGP to the point that they've dethroned Honda and Yamaha, the only team that's sitting in front of them is KTM. So I don't think Ducati is going to go and try and kind of create their own path. They're going to duplicate success. They've already proven it by bringing in Caroli. Think about all of the R&D and the research and insight that one person's going to bring. That's your Roger DeCoster. You give the 3 years that we're talking about, you have a platform that's going to be tried and true and shaken out, and boom, next thing you know, it would be an option that I think would be seriously considered. I do agree with AJ. He's not going to chase money. By the time he gets there, he'll have plenty. It won't be about money anymore.
Exactly.
If we go back to, and this is where I find it very, very interesting as a physiologist, because this is what I call the flavor of the month. Johnny, you said it best. You would have never seen Chad Reed, Ricky Carmichael, and James Stewart training together. No way, no how. But if you look at the success that those guys had, now we are talking 2 different subjects. Johnny, when you make the comment that Hayden wouldn't have gotten as far as he did last year, I agree with you because he was a rookie. I think going in and riding with Jay Coop and riding with some established riders was absolutely a brilliant move. But we're talking a 450 rider, and you look at the success of James, Ricky, and Chad riding by themselves, and they're 3 of the most dominant riders we've ever seen in the history, indoors and outdoors. So we can't scoff at it and go, no, that model would not work, because they've proven it does work. Let's not forget, in current terms, Eli Tomac rides with nobody. And if he does ride with somebody, he's doing the exact same model that James and Ricky used to do. Ricky used to bring in people like Ivan Tedesco. James used to bring in, if you guys remember, James let Ryan come and train with him until Ryan stuffed him at the US Open, and then he was out. So this model is not new. It has been proven. It has been validated. I think you choose your riding partners safely. I mean, in all fairness to Ricky and James, they only brought in people that they could abuse, right? We brought them in, we used them, we abused them, then we kicked them out. If you know anything about the back door of these facilities, James had new people riding there all the time. So I do think that Degan could go by himself and do his own program, because he's, like you guys were saying, he's not going to ride completely by himself, just like Tomac's not completely by himself, but yet he is, for all intents and purposes, if you're comparing a compound idea to an Eli Tomac compound. So you can't say the model doesn't work, and both are coexisting right now. Back in the early 2000s, it was those 3 dudes. Chad had his place, Ricky had his, James had his, and those were the most 3 dominant riders every Saturday night.
It's true.
You make a
Different
good point.
Era.
But do you think that it being more mainstream now of riding with guys that are comparable to you, not necessarily guys that you can just abuse, do you think that that's progressed to the point of why guys aren't retiring at 26 anymore? I mean, because you had Villapoto, which was right around 26. You had Carmichael, who was right around there. You had Dungey, who was right around there. now these guys are all over 30, right? Like something had to have changed. Like what is the catalyst that changed that to where these guys are having such a longer career, AJ?
Well, you
And
can
then
go
coach,
if you
you
if you got something,
rebuttal
Rob.
after him.
Okay. I mean, when you look at the guys who are in the 30s, a lot of them, they didn't make Filippo money. They didn't make James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael money, Brian Dungy money. Those guys, those 4 names I just said are those 4 names, and not many other guys can say they had the career that they had. So if they have a number in their head that they're trying to get to, might take, 5 more seasons to get to that number unless they start really winning. And I think it really comes down to that, to be honest with you. There is something I want to talk about here, but I'm not going to transition into it. But my answer to that question is that their careers are longer because like Patrick Farrell just said in the chat, they all race for money. Exactly. And when your main job, your only job is motorcycle racing, and you don't have the Villopoto money, like you're going to race 5 more seasons. That's all there is to it. And they probably still feel good. They're probably still having fun. I know Barsh is having fun, like throwing big whips. I know he's injured, but I know he's got hurt, but I'm just saying, like before he got hurt at SMX, watch his practice footage, watch his Instagram and stuff. Dude's having a blast. And I think that a lot of the guys that are having longer than usual careers are still comfortable with that money coming in. They like that paycheck, and they're still having a good time. They're still competitive. They're still top 5 guys. So I don't know. It's that simple.
AJ, hold that thought, because you said you wanted to change the topic.
I wanted Rob to rebuttal.
Yeah, we wanted to come back to that. I guess I will say this, Coach. A1 of last Supercross season, you had, 18 guys that were out. Like the sport is becoming more dangerous, but guys' careers are longer.
Well, you just actually just answered your own question. When you look at the idea that these guys train with each other every week, and you look at last summer, Star Yamaha did not have a single 250 bike on the track. It was decimated. We went into 250 pro circuit team was decimated. This idea of racing stopwatch nationals Monday through Thursday has proven that all it does is create exhaustion and a huge attrition rate. Are we ever going to see the true RJ Hampshire? No. Will he ever make it out of the 250 class? Probably not. So you're going to tell me this idea of motoring down 3 days a week, race your competition. Again, this is where, if you look at the results on the weekend, it can fit one of 2 narratives. If you've got 4 guys training together and 3 of them are in the top 3, the model's brilliant. If you look at last summer, all 5 guys or all 22 guys at Star Yamaha are training together, and there are no Star Yamaha bikes during the summer, you can say that the model doesn't work. That's why I say I get kind of fed up with the flavor of the month. Whatever's working on the weekend, and that's the new flavor. It's like when you go to Loretta's, the year that Matt Walker won 8 or 9 titles, every amateur parent, so we got to move to Matt Walker's place. He's got the Magic Elixir. And then the next year it's MTF, and then it's Club, and then it's GPF, and it's like, stop. Every riding coach has their own methodology. There's no one riding coach that works for anybody. We can go back and use the example that James, Ricky, and Chad were the most dominant during that time. They all trained alone. You could say that model worked. You go and you look at the Baker's factory and you look at the 8 or 9 championships that he's had, you can say the model works. All I look at is, and I want to go back and answer your question, why do we see a longer career? The guys that have had the most successful 450 career were in the 250 class for a very brief period of time. They didn't make a career out of the 250 class. Justin Brayton, Zach Osborne. You go in, and that's why I'm saying with Hayden, if he comes in, he wins a championship next year, he repeats it, he's 3 years, he's in, he's out. Where does the attrition start to kick in? Jay Coop's been in the 250 class for how many years now? What's slowed him down? Injuries. RJ Hampshire. You go through each color of bike. Look at Hunter. And I know, Johnny, you and I have a joke behind the scenes about this, right? If Hunter's healthy, he wins. Since he got here, since he's gotten here, he's not been healthy. He finally comes into the season healthy. He wins indoors. He wins outdoors, right? So now you start to put that together. I'm in a position where I'm ready to eat my words on Hunter being better than Jet because of the debut that Jet gave us at Des Nations. You got to tip your hat. He stepped up on the biggest platform, came from way behind, got up to 6th, got a mediocre start, went to the front, and unfortunately Hunter's still hurt. And I think Hunter being hurt will be the reason why he doesn't become the heir apparent. And I do think at this point, if Jet can stay healthy, I don't see anybody being able to beat Jet, including his brother Hunter. Now I know I'm going to sound like I contradict myself, but over the last 2 months, you can't argue that concept. I think that's what's going to hurt Hunter the most, is that he's been injured, as will RJ being hurt, ringing his bell too many times. And then you can look at Jalik Swall. He's had injuries. That slowed him down. Heck,
and this is Hurling's on the screen of him, I think, breaking his collarbone yet again.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So if you look at Hurling's, it's a lot like Ken Roxon. That's in all fairness, and I love Kenny. He's an incredible person. He's one hell of a rider. Can anybody look into the camera and honestly say that we saw the full potential of Ken Roxon while he was here? No way. Did we ever see the full Hurlings? No way. Now, to me, you go back full circle. Is that because of exhaustion? Is that because of complete depletion? We know Kenny went through hell and back trying to come from those arm surgeries. And we heard Astafin kind of talk about it on Gypsy Tales about, hey, when we're not under drug testing, we're taking any sauce that we can to stay in the races. And we know that there's no
which
drug
just
testing
opens up a whole realm of
look at
spaghetti.
Look at this outdoor race season. It's the first time we've seen Kenny show up for the whole season, and we know there's no drug testing going on. Now they'll say there'll be semantics, but there's no samples being actually tested. And you have Astafin saying, if that's what it takes for us to be able to race, that's what we'll do. We know that there was no drug testing, and we see Roxon finishing. I mean, Johnny, you and I teased about this off the record. Can you imagine how pissed off Honda is paying him $2.5-3 million a year for 4 years, and he never finished one season? And he goes to Suzuki and he finishes an entire season. What would you be? What would you be thinking?
Bike too.
Kicking his bike, winning.
Yeah, kicking his bike. That's the whole thing.
Did you hear Roxon at Destination saying he didn't even have a spider tightener on his clutch? He's running a stock perch, and he said his clutch was starting to go away, and he didn't have a spider tightener on it.
He rode so good at Destinations too. Wow.
But that's coming from Kenny saying he doesn't have a clutch tightener on his Suzuki. I mean, okay, kickstart's one thing, but a clutch tightener you don't have? Like, are you guys on that much of a shoestring budget that you couldn't get a tightener on?
Well, I just thought that was funny. Thing with the MX of Nations, that's a bummer, because it's hard to just, you're racing against guys that have got works equipment, and then Roxon is on 10-year-old equipment, which is just silly. Crazy. Just silly.
Yeah. But that's just kind of my take on the idea that I think that the longevity of a lot of the guys is they get in and out of the 250 class. They get themselves some, like Justin Brayton. I mean, the gentleman, that's exactly what he is. He's probably the most kind, most professional. And when you have that kind of a personality and you show loyalty, that's what you get. You get an extension.
Dude, I've heard some, you're talking about Brayton. I've heard some, same thing with like Short, Andrew Short. Know him personally. No, his dad is a dentist. He actually didn't do my teeth. They'd be a lot straighter if he did, but he's expensive. The dude was always somewhat aggressive. He was like a Barsha, but with a cherry on top, where he was nice in the pits, and I've heard the same stuff with Brayton as well, but again, there's a love-hate between everyone in the pits. You can definitely see if you're overly nice, people could get you could get a bad rep for being overly nice. Just talking with some of the teams, there's a little bit of like conflict of interest. There was something that happened at World Supercross with the whole drug testing stuff, and Brayton was actually an advisor for Kenny, and so he was on a different team, and that team was kind of scrutinizing Roxon. Like, it was this whole sort of interweb of just random shit going on that just ended up being like this funny family that is motorcycle racing, where you're sitting down at Thanksgiving and somebody is pissing you off.
Yeah, exactly. AJ, go back to what your thought was.
Yes.
I was just kind of, my brain was spinning, and I was thinking about, the kind of silly season. Every season's a silly season at this point. Let's be honest. It's like a musical game of musical chairs with motorcycles. And I was just kind of thinking about, Kitchen to Kawasaki, and Joe Shimoda to Honda, and all that stuff. And all that, and the 250 class this year. I mean, obviously Jet, Eli, that's going to be its own thing, but I'm more excited to watch the 250 class at A1 this year coming up. And I'll tell you why.
Well, it depends on who's on what coast too.
Yeah, that regardless of coast, the rider I am excited to watch, Tom Vial. It took him a year to get rolling. Two-time MX2 champ. Like how many guys like actually make that jump and come race Supercross and do good? Like learning did real good. He was blazing fast over the summer. I watched him at SMX and like really kind of zoned in on him. And the guy is an animal. And he rode really good at Des Nations. Like caught his teammate, was this far off his back wheel on a 250. Vial is riding with a lot of confidence. He's not switching his team. He's running the same program, doing the same thing, and he's been gaining momentum since the second he stepped on American soil. And I think he's going to be a problem in Supercross this year. I think a lot of people are already counting their chickens. I think, Shimoda and his friendship with the Lawrence brothers, he's going to be on fire on that Honda. That Honda's a reliable motorcycle. We all know that. Deegan's going to be a problem. Kitchen's going to be a problem. I'm just saying Vial. I think Vial is going to be I'm not saying he's going to win a title, but I think he's definitely going to win some races. I just been
again after his MX of Nations deal where he almost won a race on his 250.
Yes.
And him having a year under his belt. Like, dude, I've always been a Tom Vial fan. But for you saying that the 250, I agree the 250 class is incredibly stacked. But the 450 class, dude, we've got everybody freaking there. We've got Hunter, which Coach over here thinks is gonna win. We gotta see this. Prado actually going through the whoops, right?
This was crazy impressive. The gas
with the number 1 on it too.
Well, and what a statement it makes that he's over here riding with the number 1 plate on his bike, not arrogantly, just proud of it. And to me, that's impressive right there. Now we don't know what bike he's on. I'm assuming that's an American bike. I don't think they brought his chassis over, but yeah, that you didn't see Vial looking that buttered. What's he been here? A month, 3 weeks? He came over right after Destinations, 2 weeks.
Any smaller videos of him?
I mean, that's impressive as all get out.
Because when he first was on the Supercross track, he looked like he was having a small hesitation going into the whoops, which, right, this is from the outside looking in where I haven't hit a set of whoops in, 7 years or so. But here he looks much more fluid, like he's attacking. He's wheeling over the first one. And I think it's funny that Hurlings, yes, I'm sorry, guys, that I interrupted you guys, that Hurlings isn't over here racing Supercross, but this guy might be.
Well, I think he's enamored by the idea of what he saw Vial do. Vial didn't shit the bed. He didn't come out guns a-blazing like Johnny had predicted, but he definitely looked good. And I think Prada, and see, what we don't know is that whole learning curve. You've got somebody who comes from an MXGP background, and then you look at what Vial was able to convey. Obviously, they're working with Marvin. So you got Marvin with Vial, and then those two setting the platform for Prado to come over. I mean, I think anybody that doesn't take Prado seriously. Now, again, like we said, it's a totally different game when the game drops on Saturday night at A1. But the landscape, and I would like to spend some time, Johnny, going through each one of the teams. But you look at some of the musical chairs, like AJ was saying. You've got Jet Reynolds over at Club MX taking Lopes' place, so that's going to be interesting. That could be one of their big heavy hitters. You've got Jolik and you've got Moseman going over there for Triumph. You've got I'm not sure about the whole Husqvarna 250 situation. Pro Circuit looks pretty solid, obviously, with Levi going over there. You have the large roster at Star, which you can never count out. How do you even begin to say that it's easy to say that this is your heir apparent 250 East, 250 West? Because you've got Hunter out. And so it's like, okay, what do you think? Now, I do agree with you, Johnny. 450 is going to be interesting because there's so many contracts up. AC's contract up at Cowie. So there's a lot of meat on the bone. Who goes after that spot? Honda's taken care of for 3 years. So nothing's going to change.
AJ, just interrupt if you needed to say something.
No.
Yeah, please do.
No, I wanted to ask how I remember Hunter Lawrence had to drop out of that last round, walking real slow with his girl helping him. Like I don't know, haven't
That was a big
followed
money
that
race too.
storyline. I know. Do you guys know how is he doing? I don't know.
Words, mom. I mean, he's just doing as much rehab as he can with Dr. G and just trying to get back to being healthy again. You know, the good news is
he's got 6 weeks. Like,
yeah,
come on. It's comical the time off that these guys get.
Yeah. Which, you know, compared to what he had between SMX and Destinations, at least he's got 6 weeks instead of 6 days. So that's going to be helpful. But yeah, I mean, I know we say it every year, right? This is going to be the banger year that we've never seen. But I do think it's interesting. You've got the Cowie with Anderson with 2 years, AC's contract up. You got Honda. You got 2 guys that both have 2 to 3 years on their contract. So that's a solid program. You've got Sexton 3, possibly 4 years at KTM. Big question, of course, is what happens to Plessinger? Because I don't know, maybe you guys know, did he get a 1 or a 2 year deal at this last signing with Plessinger?
I would guess 1, but I can look it up.
Yeah.
I'm like, AJ,
you're in with Racer X now. So
yeah. And to interject, I know that Hunter rode Nations, but the fact he dropped out of SMX, I know that injury is still nagging.
Absolutely.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's not down and out, but for what
do you think that happened at Redbud?
No, I think it happened during preseason. I don't think he came in 100% because when he jacked his back up, they said, "Oh, he's aggravated the back injury," and it just has kind of been there all year long. And then each sequential big hit that we have on video, unfortunately, just put the nail in the coffin to the point that he bowed out of a $500,000 competition at SMX. That gives you an idea how much pain he's in.
He has to be. That has to be. Ugh.
But then if you look at Husky, right, I think Craig's up on his 2nd year of his deal. So that opportunity is there. I think Malcolm got a 2-year deal, so he's going to be comfortable. So if you look at almost each team, with the exception of Honda, right, if Plessinger's a 1-year deal, his is up. So you got 1 guy in KTM, his deal's up. That's a KTM. Honda's taken care of. Cowie's got 1 guy, his deal's up, AC. You go over there to Husqvarna. If you've got Christian Craig, his deal's up. So 450 class, we may see, unfortunately, that we're back to that guys are riding when they're injured because their contracts state if you don't race enough races, then you start sacrificing a large portion of your salary. So this is, again, why a lot of people say, why in the world would they go and race if they know they're less than 100%? Because their contract stipulates that if they don't get paid, or their pay is cut significantly. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And so, you know, that's the thing that's going to be very interesting. And here's my question to you guys. I was thinking about this before the show. Are there any 250 riders except J. Coop? No disrespect to J. Coop, but we don't know where Ferrandis is going. I'm hoping he ends up at Factory Connection. I'd love to see that team come back at some level. But who's moving out of the 250 class, with the exception of J. Coop, into 450 this year that has a factory ride? Is there anybody? I can't think of anybody that's going to.
I can't think of anyone either. I know Savachi's coming back for outdoors with Triumph. He's going backwards, but to go 252, 450, I don't think so. I looked it up. Aaron Pleasant, 1 year contract.
And then you think about Ferrandis, who 3 years ago was a 250 champion, and now is without a ride or is going to go to a satellite team.
Hunter.
Oh, Hunter, obviously. We talked about that one.
So
anyone else?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of anybody else because J. Coop was the only other person I could think of that's moving up.
We'll see like Jeremy Martin move up, but he might be back on the 250 on club too.
But you also got to think about Hunter rode the 450 already. We haven't seen J. Coop on a 450, have we? I know he did a couple of cameo appearances, but this last
Daytona a while back he did, but
not this last year, like where we saw Jet go race the 450 at Destinations last year. You saw Hunter on the 450 this year. I'm trying to think of who's going to move up that we really wonder where will he slot in that 450 class is where I'm kind of curious.
Truthfully, anybody that's moving up, they're going to be best case scenario 5th. That would be best case scenario with the field that they have here. And AJ, I know, I've got something that I've got to do. So we've got to cut the live stream short. I want you guys to let me know what you think of the new software here, because just, we're beta testing here in preseason. But because my title was about the new manufacturers, you've got Ducati that's going over in Italy. And then Beta is really the only one that's racing here in America, because Triumph is racing in MXGP. So AJ, I want your opinion on how well you think Triumph is going to do in its inaugural season in MX2, Ducati in Italy, and then Beta here in America for Supercross. And then Coach, same question.
Is Beta
Beta's
outdoor
racing,
only, or is it?
Beta is racing Supercross with Colt Nichols and Benny
you're
Bloss.
right. Okay, you know what I'm thinking. I got my wires crossed with Savachi, because I know that they might do some outdoor rounds for SMX points if they need to. That's what I was thinking of. Beta, I mean, Colt Nichols is kind of, I think, obviously the standout there between him and Bloss, and he's one of those guys that I feel like he had his year in 250, and then after he broke both his wrists, he's kind of been struggling ever since. So, I mean, hey, you never know. He could be riding. I know it was kind of a lackluster appearance on the Honda team, but I still think he probably has some fight in him. So with how stacked the class is, it would be good to see him, get some good starts and get comfortable out there, but it's hard to tell. And, we kind of thought the same thing, like with when Gas first showed up, right? It's kind of like we kind of just went through this scenario, and now it's just happening more and more. And someone said up in the chat like 40 minutes ago that they think it's becoming oversaturated. I would prefer oversaturation to undersaturation, because then more guys have opportunities to get rides, for manufacturers, and the more the better. It's just good for competition in general. I don't really have a personal opinion for Triumph in Italy or Ducati yet. It's kind of like I kind of want to see first. Like, I know who the guys are. I like Mosman. We haven't seen him ride since Hangtown.
Hey,
real bad.
They're
real
gonna
bad
win.
shoulder.
They're gonna lose.
I mean, I like Jalek Swoll, but I don't see him coming out and winning against who he's racing at all in Supercross. Not to be rude, but I don't think he's gonna win. So I think it's going to take time, and they're going to have to build momentum. And maybe when they get into outdoors, maybe they can start cooking especially if Mosman stays healthy. But when I think about all the 250 guys, I don't think Mosman or Jalek are my go-to picks for who I think is going to win. So,
Coach, same question with Ducati, Triumph, and Beta.
Yeah, there's so much meat on the bone, because when you start with Triumph, obviously you're looking at it. Let me digress for a moment. When you ask me about the teams, first thing I look at is who's running them. Okay. So when you look at Bobby Hewitt running the Triumph team, he's not going to go out and do anything half cooked. We saw what he did when he had his Suzuki team that went to the Husqvarna team that now became the Husky 250 program as we know it today. Unfortunately, he got booted from his own team. That's kind of an odd situation. We should all be thankful that he's not jaded and he's willing to come back. So I do agree with AJ. I don't think Jalek can take the bike up as far as Mosiman can, because if you think about it, not many people gave Gas 250 program much of a nod, but yet Mosiman was shaking it up there with Hunter, and he was in the mix. There's no two ways about it. You can't argue it. Now, to AJ's point, if he's healthy, that's the $1 million question for everybody, right? But talent wise, we know he has done it, and the cool part is he's done it more than once. So you can't say Mosiman isn't legit. And I think Jalek can as well. We haven't seen it in Supercross, where we've seen, flashes of wonder outdoors, including a win. So Triumph, I look at the leadership there with Scuba Steve at the helm, working with Bobby. Those are some tough guys. They've got a good pedigree behind them. When you look at Ducati, I don't know what the landscape's going to be here. I mean, we do know that you've got Caroli over there, and we know Ducati, big ticket. They're not getting into it to play. The verdict is out for me on Ducati until we see who's running it here stateside. I mean, if they plucked DeCoster and went over there, or Ian Harrison and went over there, I'd say, yeah, you can't argue with the success that those guys have had on startup programs. I don't know who's going to be on the American side of the Ducati build. And then on the Beta side, I mean, I think it's phenomenal. I think we can never have enough teams. like AJ said, I'd much rather there be a problem of oversaturation than depletion or the evaporation of teams. But I just don't see Beta being able to make that transition from an off-road platform. And I know KTM's done a good job of it, but just what I've seen and what I've heard with the Beta, it just doesn't have that oomph behind it. And I nothing against Colt and any of the riders that they have. They don't have the firepower on the bike, and I don't think that the platform itself is going to be able to contend with those other factory bikes. And you also have to keep in mind too, when you look at KTM, look at who they've got. When you look at Yamaha, and I know that sounds dumb, right? I mean, we've got a Tomac at Yamaha, you've got Sexton at over there at KTM with Plessinger, but you take a Beta program and you're bouncing it against those 3 or 4 existing colors. It's really hard to say that, one that comes to mind, because as AJ said, Gas was the latest intro before Beta and Triumph. I find it hard to believe that you would see a Colt Nichols be able to get in front of a Justin Barcia and be able to do something with it. So it's good to have them, but I don't see them being in the mix.
Time takes time.
Yes.
Time takes time. And I like that Bobby Hewitt and Jalik are getting back together. I think that, they've done good work together before.
Yes.
It's just, it's difficult to get that kind of thing up and run, to get that momentum. You know what I mean? Like, it took Mosman, he did mix it up, and then I know he's been battling a lot of injuries and everything, and it's one of those deals, like, getting momentum's the hardest part. And then once you get momentum, getting it back after you get hurt. And it's just one of those dice roll type of things. And Johnny, I thought our testing show, the test show was going good. Man. And then you just ruined it. You ruined the whole show. Like, I don't understand like what happened here. I mean, we still have 222 people watching. Only 34 people smashed the like button. If you're still in the chat, make sure you smash the like button, because then maybe it might inspire Johnny to buy a better camera. So it can. So
dude, this is a $4,000 freaking. I was going to offer you a job, AJ, but because I need help with the technical stuff.
I'll fly out to Arizona. I'll be there.
But honestly, dude, my face looks pretty damn good. It's a good looking whatever that is, Elgato. So in that, I live in BFE in Arizona. It's hot as hell down here. It's the devil's anus, and my camera overheated. But on that note, let's end it with thanks, guys. Appreciate every single one of you. AJ, always a pleasure having you on here. Loved the Racer X article. And make sure you go and follow these SOBs in the description below. Thanks for joining episode 5. And you guys want to brop with me, because that's just always what we do.
Always.
Mine is more of a bog because of what happened. And finallyfast.com just donated $46 because I've got a handicap in technology. Thank you, finallyfast.com.
Thank you.
Until next time, guys, the drill. Keep it WFO and maybe turn the AC on and not be a cheap ass.
Peace.
Good to see you guys.
You too, brother.